Recording in progress.
Hello, John.
Hello.
And so today we're going to be talking about there was an attack on Talbot Street. Somebody was attacked at 11:20 this morning, and apparently they were attacked quite seriously. They were on the ground, and the ambulance took them away. But I've heard so far that it's not serious and they're okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you an introduction about Talbot Street, and then we're going to talk about the street itself. We're also going to talk about the attack. Okay, so Talbot Street was formed in 1840. It's named after Charles Talbot, and I think he was an Englishman. Previously, the street was called Cope Street. In 1920, there was a man shot. Sean Treacy was shot and killed by a British agent. I think he was an Irish Republican, Sean Treacy was. Alfie Byrne, the 10 times Lord Mayor of Dublin, he bought the Vernon bar. The street is associated with the Monaghan bombings. You also have the first inner city mosque in Dublin City on that street. And you also, so the mosque itself, by the way, received planning permission, I think it was 2008. That's the first inner city mosque in Talbot Street. Having a mosque or any kind of church, churches, mosques on a street, I think is a good thing, okay? It can only do good. There was also, back in 1938, it closed in 1938, there was a Welsh Orthodox church on the street, which has since been a cafe and an internet cafe. The Irish Life Mall was built in 1971. It's currently going through renovation. You've Guineys there. You also had Lenahans, I remember, many years ago. And of course, my friend Liam that I used to sit beside in school, he became a millionaire on that street. And one of my friends became a very wealthy man on that street because it's always been a very good shopping street. It's a thoroughfare to O'Connell Street. So it's a street with massive potential, massive footfall, and unfortunately, there's just gangs of people. There's loads of asylum places now on Talbot Street where people are homeless or staying. You've drug addicts, you've alcoholics, you've all sorts of problems on the street. It's not a safe place to be.
Well, it doesn't nearly make sense because I always figured that Talbot Street was named after there was a Lord Talbot in Malahide, which is now a public park, and the castle that he had is open to the public, and you can visit it and see how his lordship lived in a manner for which he become accustomed. So that's who I thought it was named after. But so he would have been speaking with a posh English accent, I presume, and perhaps he's gone to wherever he goes. And then there was a D Talbot, D-E Talbot. So it's very hard to know was it originally French, but it could have been British too, of course. Now Talbot Street, I remember Talbot Street from was a young chap. The father used to bring myself and my brother in from Amy Street, which was known as Amy Street. I think it's Conley or something. But that's what it was known as when I was young. And you got off the train there and walked up Talbot Street. Now, Talbot Street at that time had tenements where people were living in very much misery. And it had that aspect wasn't too good, but otherwise it was a good business street. And that's why it shouldn't be, why it should be. There was drapery stores, Guineys is there, and then there was another one, Boyers. But apparently Ernest owned that, and some, what would they call it, property developer named Smith got there, and you know the sort of head cases they are. They don't see a building, they see it as something else. And instead of that being open when Clears was gone, and it was always doing well, it was a lovely restaurant. So I closed it. Kind of the stupidest thing imaginable. And it was in North Elm Street. So, like, businesses are good, but then what the state is allowed to come into Dublin from all over undesirable parts of perhaps Europe and further afield. So there's a mixture of people there that you don't know who's who or what's what. Now, this man, as he He probably came, he wasn't living in Talbot Street, and though people did live in Talbot Street, it was a good street. I had customers in it myself in my time. Now, there were supermarkets there. There was one called Fields. I think it's probably something else now. These changes, and they don't be for the best. But you mentioned there was a mosque there now, and anything to do with religion is good. And don't forget, just off Talbot Street is Marlborough Street. It runs parallel to Talbot Street, and that's where the Folk Cathedral is. And they're going to name it now a cathedral or something even higher. And St. Andrew a cathedral, maybe a basilica or something. So they're moving to try and establish something good there, and which is a good thing. Now, the fact that this man 40s and he would be experienced, and perhaps he come in on the Lewis or whatever it is, he got off at Amon Street or Connie, whatever they call it. I could always changing names, and I absolutely detest this business of changing names. It was known as Amy Street in my time, and that's what I call it. Anyways, you're walking up at about after 11, and suddenly attacked to be robbed. Now, it's very hard to make out. I thought there was going to be a lot of police activity in Dublin, and Store Street Garda Station with a good amount of Gardaí, and that is just beside Talbot Street. It's opposite Bussars, and which is only a stone's throw from Talbot Street. So why they are not patrolling in Talbot Street and keeping some law and order in the place, and people that are lighter and just deal with them? There's no point in just walking past where there's undesirables and robbers and all the rest of it. No, so this man was attacked and robbed in broad daylight. What's a night time? So that is absolutely dreadful. And it's not going to encourage visitors to Dublin in a fit. The like of that. You had your experience in Dublin and just beside O'Connell Bridge, which was the safest place you could be years ago. And you're going down by the Liffey to smell the nice sea air and look at the flowing river. Flowing river's often very, very relaxing. But it's not so relaxing when there's undesirables hanging about. Perhaps drug addicts and God knows what. And you were fortunate that you were able to deal with it in a pragmatic manner and not be attacked. And perhaps certainly the ambulance was called and all the rest of it. So, like, you were in a whisker. And here's this man coming up at 20 past 11, according to the reports on the media. I hope to have the facts right that it was 20 past 11.
In the morning.
It's just impossible, doesn't it, that somebody could be attacked and robbed at that time of the day.
This is the thing. So I think, look, how we design our streets, what we put into the shops on the streets matters, okay? Having the mosque there, it makes sense now, because when I walk down that street, I always see Asian people, I see people from Africa, I see them, there's a lot of coloured people on the street, okay? And it makes sense now that when I heard that there's actually a mosque there, and there's probably some of them go in there, and I'm sure you have the some Irish Muslims as well going in there. But the thing, I think that having the mosque there is a good first step, okay? Having a religion on any street and encouraging churches to move into the city is actually a very good move. I was thinking, I mean, if you had a Catholic church or you're a Protestant church or whatever church you can think of on all the different streets, it's a positive thing. So what we put into our streets is very, very important. And what the problem I see in Talbot Street is there's a lot of mobile phone shops. There's a lot of these cheap looking shops, and it attacks a certain kind of clientele, kind of customers. I mean, for my friend who's a millionaire now, he's gone from the street. For him to be gone from the street is unusual because he was a great businessman. He couldn't read or write. We went to school together. I could read and write perfectly, but he sat beside me. I didn't realize he couldn't read or write, but I found out years later that he opened shops in Talbot Street. He had three of them at one stage, but he became very, very wealthy, and he could be retired now. But it'd be unusual for him to get out of Talbot Street unless there was something that's very serious wrong with the street. Because he was a grafter and he'd stay there if there was money to be made. But I do think, look, it's probably a matter for the Gardaí, but it's also a matter, the crime is a matter for the Gardaí, but they need to look at maybe bringing in sociologists to study society and study what makes a good street. I did say before that a busker is a good barometer of a street. That if you see a busker on the street with his guitar, and if he's brave enough to stand there with his guitar and his amplifier and his microphone, chances are it's not a street where you're going to get mugged, you know? So what we do with our streets to make them safer, there's quite a lot of things there, and you start with the sociologist.
Right. Well, you see, I think unfortunately those business in the city council, those ones that are elected, that monstrosity on O'Connell Street, a steel monstrosity that achieves nothing, only accepting it. It's so awful that well, I never look at it. I don't be down that way. I couldn't bear to look at it. It's so ugly. And this is what the Dublin City Council did. Now, they're responsible for all this business in the city. So they're responsible as well. So, what are they doing about the safety of citizens as they go about Dublin? We don't hear too much good even about O'Connell Street, because while there was clearly shops in it years ago, and there was a certain amount of sound businesses and all the rest of it, it has regretfully deteriorated, and the sort of what I call cheap and not cheap and cheerful, cheap and a bit of a puzzle. You don't want too many of these internet type shops. They don't uplift the street. It's quality businesses in the street. And I think I want a complete revamp on O'Connell Street by way of quality businesses that can do business. But funny enough, on the corner of North Elder Street and Talbot Street, there was Kyle Moore, the lovely restaurants there, and but you had to go downstairs to toilets, and I'm never too keen on that. But myself, my late wife Julie, we used to often have a repast there when we were in Dublin, and we weren't aware that it was like what it is now. That Kyle Moore is not there now, and I think that place now is near enough derelict. I don't know if there's anything in it where Kyle Moore were.
Mm-hmm.
So why did they close? They used to have security on the door at the time that we used to go there, but it was very good. And funny enough, when Byers was there upstairs, this lovely restaurant that they had, and that great quality clothes, we bought stuff in it in our time because it was good quality stuff, and the staff was one of those what I call experienced staff, the sort of staff that you had in Cleary's. Now, and a lovely restaurant upstairs where you get all the people, and the food was lovely and it was within reason and it was well cooked and the staff was helpful and it was just a very enjoyable visit. So that is kind of gone. Buyers is closed. So when you don't have quality stores in the street, it begins to deteriorate, doesn't it?
That's
And
the
why
thing.
Talbot Street has gone the way it has, in my opinion, it should have improved because when there was tenements in it, there was, it was a little unfortunate because they were living in very depressed, but they were moved out to the suburbs, Drimna and Crumlin and all these, and they suddenly had a three-bedroomed house with a bit of a garden front and back, and it was like heaven. Now and Cabra. So so once that was done, and now there's apartments there, that Talbot Street should be a great business street.
It should be it.
So it needs to be looked at from that point of view. And never mind any other sort of head cases coming in, thinking that they can solve things and that they can their hat. You uplift the street and put quality businesses into the street, and then it has a life of its own, and you have security, and you have the police, the Gardaí. They want to be patrolling these streets and then dealing with what needs to be dealt with, not passing by and when there's danger. You
That's
get
it.
the drift.
Absolutely. You know,
There's rules and regulations to be followed. I noticed there I was doing 2019, and I think the government under this barrack I give with learner drivers that were driving on their own, they suddenly impounded, I think, in due time, 15 or 1600 cars that learner drivers had. And learner drivers could be waiting a good while to get a proper test.
hmm
And the tests here are designed nearly to fail you.
you
If,
will.
if you make a small little mistake, it's a failure, and their interpretation of what they consider a mistake, which you could be a good driver in the ordinary sense of the word,
I know
but you could be
we're
failing.
just going to go back to our topic. So the thing about it is one of the shops anyway, one of the more historic shops that people, from the 1970s will remember is Guineys opened in 1971, and I think the owner of Guineys, Michael Guineys, his uncle worked as a buyer in Cleary's, and that's how he got all his connections for buying homewares and clothes and the whole lot. But Michael Guineys was a very successful shop. It still is, it's still there. But a lot of people would think of Talbot Street. It's synonymous with two things. One would be Guineys, and the other would be the train station on the way to the train station. Everybody thinks, they're going down the country they go to Connolly Station. So there's two things there, and of course other people think about the Monaghan bombings. But Guineys, yeah, great store for bargains, and and do you remember, was there Lenahans on Talbot Street as well at some stage?
Oh,
Lenahans,
but it might have been, but there was Lenihan's I know in Capel Street.
yeah.
Capel Street was a good street as well. I don't know what way it's gone now, because and Mary Street was a mixture, and I was quite near O'Connell Street. Capel Street, Mary Street, quite near Henry Street, and it was a bit run down. But the city council that's responsible for all these places in Dublin, they'd want to wake up from whatever slumber they're in and stop sitting on the behinds. Develop the city, they put the spike there, and I think that indicates the sort of stupid people that they are. But they want to wake up and do something about Talbot Street and the city itself, and try to bring back a bit of culture and life and proper development of that street. That street needs uplift, and it needs to be developed so that sound businesses can locate there, and not be put to the pin of their collar with thieves knocking about.
This is the thing.
I mean,
It's sad.
Gardaí, and their job to protect the people, and they won't protect them sitting in the Garda station and coming to when the harm is done. Get out there and patrol the streets and deal with crime as they see it. They're able to sort of go after ordinary law-abiding motorists if they haven't got this, that, or the other, and go after them. But they don't go after the criminal with the same speed.
We did. We
In my
mentioned
way,
you're talking about the traffic order that this I think there's 632 police officers in the Irish traffic corps, and they do a great job. They probably overdo it at times, but we definitely in the city centre they need an army of guards to go in there and sort the place out because it's just unsafe. It just looks run down. Talbot Street looks dreadful. I said to you there a couple of months back when we done that video that I don't feel safe going down Talbot Street. Out of all the streets in Dublin.
I have to have a go at it to see what I see, and because I mean I know it well over the years, and I didn't experience any of this kind of stuff that's happened there now. So that means there's a lack of something or another, the lack of good quality shops in the street. There's a lack of proper enforcement of the law and law and order. I mean, there's if a person can be robbed at 20 past 11 in the morning, there's something radically wrong,
Absolutely.
because it's not 11 at 20 at night.
Yeah,
Bad.
there
What?
are some green shoots on the street. For example, Lidl have moved into the street. I know you're not a big fan of Lidl, but anyway, the Irish Life Mall that was built. I think was it built in 1971,
There's a
1970?
fountain there in front of it.
They have, yeah. But what they're doing at the moment is they're rejuvenating that. Okay. As far as I know, there was people in that mall, and so Irish Life when they built it, they gave the employees apartments at the very top floor overlooking the city. And I think the lease, I think they could stay there till they died or something. If I remember correctly, I'm not sure about this now, but if I remember a conversation I had with somebody about 10 years ago, they told me that they were tenants for life basically. And once they passed away, they would hand over the apartment to belong to Irish Life once again, you know. So that's for that reason. There was nothing happening there for years, but now they've decided to renovate the whole place. So that'll bring a new life to the street. So things like that are green shoots. Little is there, as I say, and but they need to do
There's a
more.
big white thing on it. It looks like something out of space. Dreadful looking site. And I see it in some other building as well. I hope they, whatever they're doing, it finishes soon because it'll put the fright on you. I mean, now you go down that street when I'm going or to get to Dart after getting the bus, and the bus can stop in that I get can stop in Abbey Street. So I have across the road and head down for the Dart and Talbot in whatever to call it that stop there in the Keys. And so I get the Dart. I think it's the Dart, yeah. And so this is Abbey Street has the VHI as well, and then you have opposite that you have the Boundary Health. So that's in the city. So there, and then there's a lot of civil servants working in various offices in the city as well. And COE used to have an office there for tourists and that when they're going in inquiries and all the rest of it, because we did have plenty of tourists, but they're as scarce as hen's teeth at the moment. There's not too many tourists coming to Dublin because it's beginning to get a bad name, regretfully. They might be going down the country to go to Connemara. Them kind of places are okay, but it's Dublin that is deteriorated, and some of the cities around as well, Limerick, and there was problems in Limerick, but they sorted that out. And Dublin seems to have now gone down a very wrong road, and I think it's a lack of investment by the city council. That's their responsibility to look after these streets and to do what's required. I mean, to put all this old paving down and all this kind of old cod, it's you want to be able to walk on a footpath. You don't need all this old paving business kind
Yeah,
of
see,
thing.
see,
Want the street to be improved by way of making it attractive for business to locate there, providing that there's proper security and Gardaí present.
this is the
These are
thing.
factors, you know.
This,
People are not going to open in places where their lives are at risk.
well, see, this is the thing. I suppose look, there's one thing to put the Gardaí on the street, and that's a great thing to do. But I think what the government needs to do is consult with each and every business on Talbot Street to find out where is the issue? Where are these people coming from that are thieves, that are causing the problems? How are they attracted to the street? Why are they attracted to the street? Talk with the mosque leader, find out what's going on the street. You know, all these things need to be done rather than just putting Gardaí on the street is just no good on its own. You have to do the research.
Improve the street, as I said. That's the obligation of the city council, the elected city council. What are they there for? They're sitting on the behinds doing nothing. Improve the street as regards the shops to do them up. The owners and forget about there's too many Mickey Mouse out places. There isn't enough quality stores in the street. Buyers, those people who want to be approached as to why they closed it and open it forthwith. Not be leaving it the way it is. It's closed and all the rest of it. That doesn't do any good for anything. Improve the street as regards the retail outlets, modernise it, and so on and so forth. It needs it badly. And when you have good quality stores and people can go down and shop in safety, providing that there's a certain amount of security as well. You see, what good shops is in Talbot Street now except for Guineys? But you want other type of shops. Boyers was a great shop. It had good quality stuff as well. And yet to close it, it doesn't make sense to me. It never did make sense. I thought it was a dreadful move. Stupid as well. These need to be, if they're not fit to do it and they have some other agenda, it just compulsory purchase and have it as a that somebody will develop it and make it attractive by way of incentives.
Very
This
good.
incentives is the great key for to bring people back in and to modernise the street, modernise the stores, and make it a viable proposition for business people to locate there. And don't be charging exorbitant rents like what they did in Grafton Street. You can't overcharge people. They have to make a living. And you get these, what I call landlords, call them robbers, because they charge too much for what's not that important, you know, yourself. So that's the solution, as far as I'm concerned. Modernise the street. It's crying out for it.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks very much, Oliver. Bye now.